Hey, this is Rob Anspach, and welcome to another edition of eHeroes. Today we're going to talk about how culture drives high performance. So if you're an entrepreneur out there and you want to get to that next level, or you're on that plateau and you're stuck, I actually brought in Coach David Greer to tell us how we can do that. So welcome, David, and thanks for being here.
Thanks, Rob. I'm really excited to be here with eHeroes.
Now, you're up in Vancouver. I'm in Pennsylvania. Right there. I mean, there's already a culture difference.
There is, indeed.
You're just nicer up there, and we're just mean down here.
Well, I think that when an entrepreneur starts a business, what manifests itself typically is the culture, like whatever the beliefs are of the entrepreneur end up manifesting themselves in the people they hire
Mm-hmm.
and the way they operate. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that per se. I joined a young software startup as the first employee after the founders, and we added people slowly, and we added a certain kind of people and built a certain culture, and it worked out really, really good. And we're very service oriented and very Canadian. Really wanted to look after customers, and if we had like one angry customer in a year, like every employee would stop what they're doing to like deal with this person, like because we
Wow.
were so uncomfortable. Like we don't do well with angry clients. So
Yeah, I would have just fired them.
yeah, right, exactly. So and that's okay too. You know, subsequently from selling out of Robel, I've realized that there's a lot of benefit to being more proactive about your culture,
Mhm.
to actually writing it down, and to, like, I look at some of the people who didn't like hang around, or people who I hung on to when I was running Robel for too long. There was really a cultural misfit. And if I
Mhm.
had been clearer about what the culture is and what the expectations were around that culture, I think it would have sussed those people out sooner. And my belief is that you can't teach culture. Like, you were taught what your parents taught you, the ethics that you have, the
Mhm.
way that you kind of operate in the world is baked pretty deep. And I think you can teach people a lot of skills, but I don't think you can teach them culture. So my belief is that you want to hire people that match your culture,
Right.
and actually have a culture filter that you put on. I mean, I have one client who's massively growing. I mean, they net added 38 people last year, um, but they let go 12, and these are super smart engineering people. But they did not fit the culture, and it was just becoming more and more of a clash, and senior management was having to consume more and more time managing these people,
Mhm.
whereas when you hire people who fit in with your culture, you spend less and less time managing them because they have behaviors you already want. So I think that's a sign of a really healthy company, is one who's clear on its culture, hires for culture, and is prepared to fire for really serious violations of
Mhm.
culture.
Now
Uh,
let's take that a little bit further, because I see that when it comes to software companies such as Microsoft versus Facebook, when Microsoft grew, everything was culture oriented. When Facebook grew, they kind of uh, enveloped all the cultures that they were going into. So with Facebook, it started out as a US company, but as they started, creating Facebook for Europe, Facebook for Germany, for all these different companies, they started changing their own internal culture and said, well, okay, now we're a worldwide phenomenon. And I think that's then they had to start changing all their dynamic internal rules and regulations and policies to reflect the world instead of their own culture.
yeah, and I mean, that makes sense if you want to build a global company,
Hmm.
right? And I don't know the Facebook story well enough. What I would be curious about is, like, how many people were let go, or
Right.
not even necessarily let go. I think when culture is really, really powerful, people self-select themselves out.
Yeah.
They're like, oh shit, this is not the place for me. And so as they moved into a global company and had to go recognize and honor a lot of different cultures and a lot of different ways that people operate, um, they that some people probably self-selected themselves out of that because it didn't match what they valued,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and it's interesting. I did an interview with Ray Zinn, who's the founder of one of the largest electronic companies in Silicon Valley. And Ray is a big, huge proponent of culture. And I asked him, so you have this global operation, you have factories all over the world in many, many different cultures. And he said, for him, it all just boiled down to family.
Mm-hmm.
That family was what was most important, and that people should make decisions with their family in mind. So if people had to go look after a sick child, or they had to do things like, that's universal. And also sharing stories about family is universal. And so they could always bring teams from all over the world and get people to share something about their family to help get that connection going. And so that was his belief, and it was his belief about how he built such a successful global company.
Mm-hmm. How, like, Twitter just announced that they're allowing almost all their employees to stay home indefinitely. And what I've always discovered is that if I'm going into a company and I'm working with a company, I interact well with the people that are there. Well, if they're all at home, I'm not getting that same interaction. I'm not getting that culture. All I'm getting is a Zoom call like we're doing now. So it's kind of one-dimensional.
It is, and I still think there is a place for face-to-face.
Mm-hmm.
I started working home in 1982.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have video. We just had the phone. And in the 20 years I built Robel, the software company that I joined when I was still in university, we ran it as a virtual company. I mean,
Okay.
we had an office. We had a number of people who did go in the office for frontline, tech support and sales, partly because the phone infrastructure didn't allow that to be distributed in the 80s and the 90s. But like Bob Green and I, the original co-founder, I mean, we co-invented host-based email in 1985 because we realized like the phone is really interrupts me, and if I'm in the middle of some really deep technical problem and Bob just wants to like, are we gonna have lunch on Tuesday?
Mm-hmm.
Like we wanted it to work like snail mail but be faster.
Yeah.
And so now I now see instant messaging and I see email like used in a way that was not our vision. So again, I think what happens when you're virtual is you have to bring way more conscious thought to the interactions and the connection.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't, as you say, you can only get so much through this medium that you and I are talking to, and you can take it quite far. But sometimes you will have to meet face to face. And I don't think that Twitter is precluding that by having everyone work at home. I think it's going to be very interesting as things advance in our current society to see. I think a lot of people are going to want to go back to work. Like for many people, they may love their work, but the social interaction is actually one of the really driving forces of being in the organization. Yeah. And again, I think it gets back. So we're back to culture, because it's the culture is bringing together these people that you like to interact with, not just on a business, but what'd you do on the weekend, and like it's actually really important.
Yeah, I mean, I have some clients I've never met, face to face.
I've
talked to them on the phone. I've done video, but I've never gone to lunch with them. I've never shook their hand. I've never been in their office. So it comes back down to where do we want as an entrepreneur, where do we want to go? Who do we want to see? Who's our ideal client?
So one little anecdote here. So we're building Robel. We talk to a lot of people on the phone. So I'd have people who I probably had interact on the phone with, say, for 4 or 5 years. And then that person, so in the venue, in the market that I was in, annual trade shows were a big thing in the 80s and 90s.
Mhm.
So one of those people, say, shows up at the trade show. And I'm like, wow, you're a lot taller than I thought. You're wearing glasses.
I've got that
Like,
too.
because we didn't have video, right?
Yeah.
And we don't have LinkedIn with everyone's profile picture. And it turns out that each of us had built these whole mental model of what we look like from what our voices sounded like on the phone.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I went
But
to a conference and someone came up to me and they say, Rob, and I'm like, I didn't even know who they were. They knew me.
yep,
Scary, But let's talk about people strategy. I mean, it comes down to hiring. Do they fit that culture? Do they? I mean, we're kind of bouncing back, but I think without people, there is no culture.
there isn't.
So,
So, you know, here's another mantra of mine. So my belief system, for me, and what works for me is, I think, what's the point if you don't have fun?
yeah.
So, like, I only hire people who have fun. I only work with people who we can have fun. Like, when I facilitate with senior teams, I always set an expectation at the start of a 1 or 2 day facilitation is have fun.
Mhm.
Like, to just remind people, like, it's no one will die during
Hopefully.
right, hopefully during the facilitation. Like, everyone tends to treat it so seriously, and I love people that are that engaged with their work that they want to treat it seriously. But truthfully, in any organization, if I go by a meeting room, well, it's much harder to do this on Zoom now,
Yeah.
but you know to go by a meeting room and hear a bunch of people laughing,
Mhm.
tells me they're on the right track.
Yeah.
No matter how bad the problem is, what the difficulty is that they're trying to overcome, if there can be some lightness in it, then I think it'll all work out.
Mhm.
And so I look for that in people when I'm hiring them too, right? And I encourage and find ways when I'm working with groups of people to inject a little bit of fun, or try something that might be a little bit of fun.
Yeah. Well, besides fun, what else do you look for in an employee or a contractor or somebody that's going to partner with you on a project?
Sure. So if we go back to interviewing, so I believe the two kind of things that I work with most and coach my clients with is Brad Smart and talk grading.
Mhm.
And then his son, Jeff Smart, has written a book called Who, which I find a much easier, I can consume Who. I haven't been successful at reading top grading. So again, it's about asking open-ended questions that let people reveal themselves to you. And these have nothing to do with their skills per se. It's about how they work.
Mhm.
And in Brad Smart's progress, there's really only two of the most critical things I think that he is a proponent of. Is one, go back to like high school. Like, what was your first job?
Mhm.
Tell me about that. Tell me about your second job. And obviously, if they're 28 years old, you want to hear about every job. If you're old like me, you probably don't want every thing
Oh,
in between.
I had a lot of jobs.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the deal. So for that, you want to go back and look for the behaviors that were consistent through all of those jobs.
Yeah.
And if you ask open-ended questions about those experiences for people, you will discover that. And then in the last couple jobs that they've had, ask for their references and ask the interviewee, what will your boss say about you?
Mhm.
And then the third part is you got to call those people and actually ask them.
Right. I know
Right.
for me, it was, from 1985 to 1995, I probably had about 20 jobs. You're like 20 jobs in 10 years. It's like, yeah. But in 1995, when I became an entrepreneur, started my first business, I took a lot of the experiences I had, into this business. I still didn't know marketing. So I had to study marketing. I had to do all this stuff. And it wasn't until about the year 2000 that, I had enough experience running this business that I could start coaching others and doing stuff. But then it was another 10 years until I started writing books. So, my progression as an entrepreneur is different than somebody else's. But, I used a lot of those experiences, to shape who I am. And I'm very sarcastic at what I do. And I don't think I'd hire somebody like me because we would just, be like, I don't know, instant fire.
I don't think you should hire people like you. I think that's a real mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there's a difference between the values, cultural values, which to me are behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're a hard worker. Do you say what you're going to do? Are you a person of integrity? Right.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think there needs to be differences. Like you talked about Facebook moving to cultural differences. So you take someone from Germany and someone from India and someone from Pennsylvania, and they're going to have very different views of the world and things. And I think that that's healthy, especially if you are like Facebook trying to build a global brand.
Yeah.
Right. But the underlying, like, what's important to you? Do you show up to meetings at the right, on time? Do you try and add value to the other people in the room? Like, these are all things that are values that are important to me and what I would be hiring people for. And then, of course, for entrepreneurs like you and like me, smart entrepreneurs just never hire us. I mean, they hire us to help them as, as a service. They know they shouldn't hire us as employees.
No, because that doesn't work either.
Right. But most entrepreneurs know that, or well, they only make that mistake once or twice.
Well, I had made a mistake a couple of years ago, and I'm not saying it's a bad mistake. It was just one of those lateral things that you do. I took on a client that, although they paid me well, they treated me like an employee, and I wasn't an employee. I was a contractor, just like I am now. But what they really wanted was a yes person, and I would question everything that they were doing because to me it was wrong. They would never tell me. They were never clear about their vision. So I'm always saying, "What about this? What about this? What about?" Stop questioning me, Rob. Finally, after 2 years, they got rid of me and hired in-staff people that were all yes people, and then their marketing tanked.
Well, there you go.
So,
if I could come back.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I just want to come back to Brad Smart because I took Brad Smart's top grading course about a dozen years ago, and he was actually the teacher, which that was a privilege. But so his thesis, and he's done a massive amount of research, so I have a lot of reason to believe this is true. So 3 out of 4 hires don't last beyond year 1.
Yeah.
And his cost, so he's got a lot of analysis in his book in which he presents when he gives a workshop. That's basically $1 million is what it really costs. And he has reasons why he lays it all out that way. And it's not just for big businesses, right? So it's $1 million per mishire. And 3 out of 4 hires are mishires. So talk about an area where we really could up our game as entrepreneurs. I think that really is an area. And again, I'd go back to, so the book I've really found useful and I've recommended to several of my clients is Who and it's just WHO by Jeff Smart. And I think it's a very practical, lay it out. Here's the kind of here's specific questions you could ask. And they also give a very specific way to do the process of filtering from advertising to the first interview to the second interview. And they lay it out really nicely and give their reasoning behind it. So for entrepreneurs, I highly recommend that as a resource. And, we're in a time when a lot of people, so if your business has the opportunity to grow right now, it is a great time to hire people because I think a lot of fantastic talent is out there, but you probably need to upgrade your ability to interview and work through a hiring process so that you can actually get those really top performers.
Right.
And then the final piece is, if A's hire B's, they hire C's, and pretty soon all you have is Z's.
Yeah.
And I think A's want to hire double A's and double A's want to hire triple A's. And I know as an entrepreneur, it took me a long time to get to that place where I was comfortable hiring people that were smarter, quicker, faster than me.
Yeah.
Right? It can feel very threatening, but that's actually what you want to do, because your skill is to bring all those people together. Your skill as an entrepreneur, I believe, is to have the vision of the market, where the market's going, what the market's going to need, and then helping people to both invent the products and services to satisfy those pain points, and then the operational people to supply it all.
Yeah.
Right. And that I think you want people that are way better than you.
Well, in my first venture, I didn't want to hire people that were smarter than me, only because I didn't want to train them on how to do everything and then have them leave and start their own business. Basically, I was, training them to be my competitor. I didn't want that, but then I realized that, and especially in this business that I'm in, I need to hire people that are smarter than me. Bill Gates, he's a brilliant guy, but most of the people that work for him are smarter than him.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows that. Elon Musk, he's a very brilliant guy, but he hires people that, again, smarter than him. Because he's building rockets, building these cars, doing this, and I think it's critical that you hire people that can do things beyond your own ability.
And there's two entrepreneurs with massive visions,
Yeah.
right? Gates in the 80s had the vision of a desktop, a computer on every desktop.
Yeah.
Crisp, clean, and Musk is trying to change the world in two places: space exploration and electric cars. Like, nothing like being ambitious, right?
Right.
But I'm back to talk about visionaries.
Yeah.
Like, both of them are hugely visionary people.
And they're both billionaires, so they can afford to, hire people. But the problem is, when they first started out, they couldn't afford anybody. But as they grew, they started to realize they have to hire these smart people, otherwise their business wouldn't go the way they wanted.
I know an entrepreneur in Edmonton, the province over from where I live, who's in the food business. And when she was starting out, she knew that she needed a lot deeper retail experience and people in the food distribution chain.
Mm-hmm.
So she hired a fifth of people's brains to start with. But she did it very proactively and did it in a way that she hoped, as the business grew and she could afford to pay them more and give them more work, they would eventually come into the fold and be part of the senior leadership team. And for a number of those individuals, that's exactly what happened. Mm. So that was the way that she got that super smart people, even though she couldn't afford it at that stage of the business. But she also has just this massive vision of what it is that they're trying to build. And these people were very attracted to her vision.
Yeah.
And so there are ways of doing it. Like, again, being an entrepreneur is being creative in all parts of your business. I trained as a computer scientist and ran a software business for 20 years. So I had to be innovative all the time to survive. But I believe entrepreneurs can be incredibly innovative in all aspects of their business. Mm-hmm. And in ways that, that how you sell can be very innovative and can be industry changing, in fact.
So how do people reach out to you? Where do they go?
The easiest way is my website, which is coachdjgreer.com. So it's the initials of my name, David James. And on every page of my website is my phone number and my email address. So, I like to make it easy. And I offer any entrepreneur that's feeling stuck, doesn't know what to do next, a free 1-hour coaching call.
Wow.
And, I promise at the end of that, you will have better direction of where it is that you need to go for yourself and your business. And, my promise to entrepreneurs, if you spend an hour with me, you'll have 3 ideas to accelerate your business in the next 90 days.
Can't beat that.
So please, listeners, take me up on that, because I really would love to help.
And I think you could. I just looked at your website a little bit ago. Great stuff. And what I've learned from you, just in the 25 minutes now is just incredible. You have experience, you have the knowledge, and you understand that cultural shift that people are going through, and who they need to hire and why they need to hire to level up.
You got it.
I think every business experiences those plateaus, and when you do, contact David, and he's going to be patient with you. He has to be, because he spent 25 minutes on this podcast with me. But for all the listeners, seriously, go to David's website, coachdjgreer.com, and follow him on the various social channels, email him, and get to know him, because I think it's going to benefit you and your business. So and next time, check us out on the next episode. Hey, adios.